A White Stone by Jim and Mary Corbett. Chapter 4. From Our Father's Heart. I call you to holiness, but you are too busy to spend time with me. I call you to a crucified life, but you cannot die to yourself. I call you to present my Son to those who are dead, that they might receive his life, but you curse them in my presence. Can you not see how cold you really are? Can you not see how far you've strayed from my purposes for your life? Who are you saving by your actions? What are the purposes of your comings and goings? Whose agenda are you following, and what is its end? Wake up, the harvest is white, and the workers are few. Pray to the Lord of the harvest. What are his purposes? What is his agenda? Pray for wisdom, that you might see with his eyes and move with his heart. The time is short, and much is to be done. End of From Our Father's Heart reading. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God, and not of us. 2 Corinthians 4:7. The new BMW that had seemed so important to Tom that morning was somewhat out of place in light of the purity of what had happened throughout the day. With the front seats more than filled with the two men, Tom and Train made their way to Sally and the kids, who were waiting at home. Tom had called first to prepare his family for the grinning giant by his side. Sally immediately insisted on having Train stay for at least a couple of days, and Tom agreed, thinking it would be good for Train also. Fresh air, good food, and a comfortable bed would be a welcome change to someone who lives like he does, they reasoned. Even after the countless stories Tom had told about him, Sally was not prepared to meet Train. Obviously taken aback, she still greeted him enthusiastically, but gave Tom shocked glances when she knew Train wouldn't notice. As he unfolded himself from the front seat of the car and ducked his head on his way through the front door to become the main object in every room he occupied, Train had finally arrived. Now Sally, Tommy, and Becky could see for themselves what Tom had been trying to explain all these months. After spending Wednesday with Train and several children from the neighborhood, 7-year-old Timmy Carlson, who had never uttered a word in his life, exclaimed to his parents that evening, "Jesus loves me," as he pointed confidently to his chest. It appeared the Lord broke through years of him considering himself less important than most everything in life. When God said, "Open your mouth wide and I will fill it," he surely had Timmy in mind. All day Thursday, to anyone who would listen, Timmy was a fountain of stories and expressions that welled up and spilled out from a heart that now understood he was greatly loved by God. Margaret Miller took the brace off that she wore on her small, twisted leg so she could crawl around on the ground. In the spirit of the afternoon, and in the heat of the chase, she ran, jumped, and danced. Only after the roar of life quieted to a normal din, for children, did Fred Smithers yell, "Hey, Margaret, your leg ain't funny no more." In the midst of a stride, Margaret stopped, looked down, and said, "Wow, Jesus must have fixed it." He had, and everyone cried. Each encounter seemed to give Train new life, or somehow imparted to him the joy he himself had missed as a child. He played as he loved and prayed, in absolute fullness, total abandon, and childlike trust. There was no reason other than God's reason, no encounter other than God's appointment, no situation other than God's desire to show himself to everyone, as far as Train was concerned. D.L. Moody once said that he wondered what would happen in the life of someone who totally sold out and surrendered to God. The Brackens were beginning to get a glimpse of what that might look like. In 3 days, neighbors, some whom Tom and Sally had never met, became friends. Cold relationships were warmed, and all were pointed to the sustainer of life and healer of their souls. Old Mrs. Grimshaw smiled for the first time after meeting Train and his Lord. Before that, many neighbors had encountered her wrath for not mowing their lawns right, or cutting shrubs too short, or picking flowers too early and not in full bloom. They were startled the first time they saw that smile. Mickey Tornett, much to the embarrassment of all, pulled his mommy's dress as she was talking to Mrs. Grimshaw and loudly bellowed, "I didn't even know she had any teeth." Tom, Sally, Tommy, and Becky were enraptured by their guest. Although Train remained quiet unless he was asked a direct question, There was never a hint of tension or uneasiness. Over the 3 days Train was with them, an unquestionable friendship. No, more than that, an alliance was made that defied human reason. The simple love, the holy peace that permeated this man of God left no room for formality or decorum. It seemed that Train was family in a very new sense of the word to the Brackens. Even Tommy and Becky talked of making a part of their new house a place for Train to live in forever, but Tom and Sally somehow knew that would not happen. The ride to the Thursday night church service was uneventful, at least in light of the newness of life that had sprung up over the last few days. One brief stop at a drive-through restaurant to bring a young boy with purple hair to the Lord, an event that would have been enough for at least a few weeks of marveling at any other time, was the only circumstance of note. Upon arrival at His Holiness Christian Fellowship, an architectural marvel given much press for its beauty and awe-inspiring design, things took an unexpected turn. For the first time since their initial encounter, Tom noticed that Train was somewhat uneasy. An unusual gloom seemed to come over him. Downcast, even morose, he sat in the car and watched as expensive, shiny luxury automobiles were parked, and their proud, colorful cargo made a beeline for the church entrance, eager to see what God had in store for them this evening. "I'm going to sit here for a while," Train stated flatly. "You just go in by yourselves. I'll come in after I talk with my father for a while." "Honey," Tom said to Sally as they walked toward the front door, "I never even noticed that he's wearing the same clothes he had on when he came. Do you think he's embarrassed about how he looks? I could kick myself for not being more sensitive. Lord, please forgive me." End of chapter 4.